A very good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, scholars, academicians, students. I, Ranjana Singh, welcome you once again for the third working session of the two-day international conference. Before formally starting the session, I would request the august gathering to please give a round of applause for your own selves, because it was because of your uh, patience, zeal, enthusiasm, dedication, and determination that we have reached the penultimate session of the two-day international conference. To start the third working session, may I request the distinguished dignitaries to please come upon the dais. The chair, Professor H.K. Singh, Dean, Faculty of Commerce, BHU. The speaker for the session, Professor Gopa Kumar, former Vice-Chancellor, Central University of Kerala. Professor Sanjay Kumar Jha, Dean, School of National Security Studies at Central University, Gujarat. And Mr. Alexis Rostand, Managing Director, Eiffel Investment Group, who will be engaging with us digitally. Now, as a part of a ritual and a part of a culture, may I request faculty members to please come forward for the felicitation of the dignitaries. I request Professor Shri Prakash Singh sir to please felicitate the chair, Professor H.K. Singh, Dean, Faculty of Commerce, BHU, by presenting Angavastram, a bouquet of love. Presenting Angavastram, woven by skilled workers of the holy city Kashi. Presenting memento in the memory of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay. Thank you, sir. I request Professor Manoj Mishra, sir, to please felicitate the next speaker, Professor Gopa Kumar, former Vice-Chancellor, Central University of Kerala, by presenting the Angavastram, the memento, and a bouquet. I now request Professor Tej Pratap Singh sir to please felicitate the speaker and his friend, Professor Sanjay Kumar Jha, Dean, School of National Security Studies at Central University of Gujarat, presenting bouquet, a symbol of love and gratitude. The Angavastram to show the warmth in the relationship they share. And a memento to symbolize the liveliness of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay in our hearts. I welcome Professor H.K. Singh, presently Professor of Commerce at Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. He has been the founder, Vice-Chancellor at Maharishi University of Information Technology, Lucknow. He has a teaching and research experience of more than 36 years. Professor Singh has been the EC member of the Indian Commerce Association for 2 terms and sectional chairman of AICC Seminar on Special Economic Zones. I welcome Mr. Alexis Rostand, Managing Director, Eiffel Investment Group. Mr. Alexis is a French financier, economist, and author. He graduated from HEC Paris and in law. He is a lecturer in economy and philosophy at Sorbonne University, Abu Dhabi. I also welcome the speaker for the session, Professor Gopa Kumar, former Vice-Chancellor, Central University of Kerala, 2014 to 2020. He has steered the nascent university to academic heights and has rightly earned the reputation of an institution builder. He is a senior political scientist in India. Earlier, he has served as professor and head of the Department of Political Science and the Dean of Social Science in the University of Kerala. I also welcome the next speaker, Professor Sanjay Kumar Jha, Professor and Dean, School of National Security Studies at Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. Currently, he is also officiating as the Finance Officer of the university. Professor Jha has more than 20 years of experience as a researcher, analyst, project director, and administrator at research institutes and various think tanks. He has earlier served in research institutes like Institute for Conflict Management and the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. With this, I now request the chair to please proceed the session. Over to you, sir.
Afternoon, everyone. Professor Jha, Professor Gopa Kumar ji, my bosom friend, Professor T.P. Singh Saab, Professor Sri Prakash Singh Saab, other dignitaries and participants. The topic is very burning, economic implications of these two authorities. I am starting from scratch. If anyone is asking to you what is economics, you are aware economics has been originated from India. The first book was written by Kautilya, known as Arthashastra. But although it was in the Sanskrit language, it could not attain so popularity. But we can say economics was originated from this country. But as far modern economics is concerned, the first book was written by Adam Smith. The name of the book was Wealth of Nations. In those days, it was considered wealth is for the country. And therefore, it was the wealth definitions. This was the first definition known as the wealth definitions. But friends, money is simply a good servant, but the poorest master. If money is everything, your goal is money, it has no meaning. In India, there is a very good term known as Subh Labh. We are bothering about profit, but we are bothering profit through pious means. Therefore, in our country, there is word Subh Labh. You cannot consider money is everything. Although my subject is commerce, we are always talking about profit, but you cannot say profit is everything. Therefore, the second definition came, known as the welfare definitions. Economics is for the welfare of the mankind. By any process, if we are caring about the welfare of the society, it's good. But it was also criticized. How can you talk about such critical value judgments? It's very difficult to decide what is the real welfare. And therefore, after welfare definitions, which were propounded by Alfred Marshall, we started the Robbins definition. Third definition. As per Robbins, economics is for best choice making. You have decided at this particular time to be here. Everyone is having limited resources with various applications. And we are deciding always the best. Rational deciding. For selecting the best, we are having two processes. One is intuition, another is rational. Friends, in my subject, we are expected to think about the rational decision making. And therefore it was said, now the definition of economics is over. Robbins has given the best selection. But somehow it was also very much criticized. Selecting the best is always creating serious problems. हर आदमी दिन भर तय करता है what is best and accordingly we are doing the things. शाम को हर एक को कष्ट है क्योंकि हमारे पास 4, 6, 8 रास्ते थे, हमने कोई 1, 2 ही किया. शाम को हर एक को frustration है. I am unable to achieve all those goals. And therefore the last, fourth point, J.K. Mehta. Indian philosophy, wantlessness. Selecting the best is not the best. You think about wantlessness. And as per J.K. Mehta, simple living and high thinking. हमको आपको सेलेक्टिंग द बेस्ट से काम नहीं हो पाएगा. मनी हमारे पास कम है, रिसोर्सेज हमारे पास कम है, द गोल्स आर अनलिमिटेड. थिंक अबाउट रिड्यूसिंग योर ओन वांट्स. और ऐसा जिस दिन मिल जाएगा आपकी आवश्यकताएं घट करके शून्य पर आ जाएंगी, यू आर द हैप्पीएस्ट पर्सन ऑफ द इंटायर वर्ल्ड. तो जेके मेहता साहब ने बहुत अच्छी परिभाषा दिया वांटलेसनेस की. लेकिन इसकी भी बहुत घनघोर आलोचना हुई। अगर वांटलेसनेस को मान लिया जाए तो नहीं यहाँ सेमिनार बचेगा, नहीं यहाँ हॉल बचेगा, नहीं यहाँ दुनिया बचेगी, नहीं यहाँ बहस बचेगा। इस तरह थोड़ा समाज में हो सकता है हम सब कुछ खत्म कर दें। नाउ द लास्ट पॉइंट इज ग्रोथ डेफिनेशंस. It was said, as per economics, we have to always care about the growth of the society. लेकिन उसमें अब एक परिवर्तन आया है, मैं ग्रोथ को चेंज करने जा रहा हूं, इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ, जिसको आज की सरकार कहती है सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका प्रयास. We have to care about it. We are simply a teacher, and every time as a teacher I have to care the last student. As per Deendayal ji, it is known as Antyodaya. And as per Ruskin, it is unto the last. Whether you are saying Antyodaya, Sarvodaya, unto the last, we have to care about the last student, last sections of the society. And therefore, I am saying, as per the best definition of the economics is concerned, we can say, Deendayal ji, they talked about the Antyodaya. For the proper growth of our country, we have to care about the definition of Deendayal Upadhyay ji. Friends, from my point of view, for this particular country, we started the growth process in 1951. In 47, we got independence, but from the economics angle, there was no serious endeavor. In 1951, we started the Planning Commission, which is being converted by the Modi government as Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is not the Hindi word. NITI, National Institution for Transforming India. Planning Commission started the 5-year plans for this particular country. लेकिन जरा सोचिए, उस समय रूस में शुरू किया जाता है 20 साल की योजना, और हमारे यहाँ बात चलती है 5 साल की. Anyhow, after 20 years in 1971, the things changed. Now, Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister. उन्होंने नारा दिया गरीबी हटाओ, और उसके तहत स्कीम बनाई जाने लगी. Third turning point 1991, LPG era, Narasimha Rao government. From those years we are talking about the developed Bharat, Viksit Bharat, and we were expecting by the year 2011, somehow my country will attain the position of developed nation, super economic power. But friends, please permit me, it was not possible in the year 2011. वो नहीं हो पाया. 2014 में इस तरह के संकेत आते हैं. प्लानिंग कमीशन को हमने बदला नीति आयोग में, और जिस तरह के संकेत अब दिखने लगे हैं, वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग बाय द ईयर 2047. अमृतकाल से गुजर रहा देश ना. फ्रॉम 2022 to 2047 we are expecting that India will become the developed nation, Viksit Bharat. But friends, please rely on the philosophy of Deendayal Upadhyay ji. We have to care about the rural India. Every time we are focusing on the urbanization. One example I am giving to you, self-help groups, microfinance. Without caring about these things, you cannot think about the growth of the rural belt. Every time macro-financing, macro-insurance, macro-industries. Now the government of India has changed the name of small industries. It is known as MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises. In the case of microfinance, you see Muhammad Yunus. In Bangladesh, they are doing revolution. In this country also, we have to think about micro enterprises, micro development. And lastly, friends, in our country, there has been a rift between public sector versus private sector. In 1951, we decided the public sector will become the engine for the fast growth. In 1971, the same philosophy was adopted. But in 1991, you are saying, now we have to think about the growth through private sector. In LPG, the central point is privatization. I am suggesting here, leave the matter of conflict between public sector and private sector. The third choice is there, cooperative sector. Your competent Home Minister is the in charge of Ministry of Cooperation. I am giving you the example of Amul. आपके शहर में भी अमूल का स्थापना हो चुका है, बनास डेयरी. Best growth model may be the cooperation. IFCO, Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative Organization, for the fertilizers, for dairy, Amul, Anand Milk Union Limited. In every field, we have to rely on the cooperative sector. These are some rudimentary points from my point of view, and only by those things we can think about the growth of our vast country. Lastly, friends, I'm giving one word, BSP, in a lighter mood. We are in Uttar Pradesh, we are in Kasi. Here, BSP doesn't mean Bahujan Samaj Party. BSP means Bijli Sadak Pani. It is the only infrastructure. For the growth of any country, these are three major sectors: electricity, roads, and water supply. In the post-COVID era, you are aware, everyone is interested to live into the rural area. अब आदमी नहीं चाहता बड़े शहरों में रहना, वो छोटे शहरों में रहना चाहता है. लेकिन वहाँ ये तीनों चीज़ें होनी चाहिए, बिजली सड़क पानी. जहाँ बिजली सड़क पानी होगी वहीं हम रहना चाहेंगे. मैं दीनदयाल जी को पढ़ा था, उन दिनों उन्होंने उसकी बात किया है. तो ये कुछ ग्रोथ मॉडल इकोनॉमिक्स का जो दिया है दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी ने, मैं कांग्रेचुलेट करना चाहूँगा प्रोफेसर टीपी सिंह साहब को. बहुत रेलिवेंट टॉपिक पे इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस रखा गया है. और हमारे साथ two learned authorities are available here, Sanjay Kumar Jha Sahab and Professor Gopa Kumar ji. We are going. Okay, I'm sorry. I was not. I'm sorry. Third is. Acha. What is the name, sir? Okay, please do.
Mr. Alexis Rostand.
Yes, speaking. Yeah, hear me?
Yes, you're audible, sir. You're audible, sir.
Okay. Okay,
Please
thank
start
you.
your
Thank you
presentation,
for inviting me, and sorry again not to be present. Actually, it's yeah, it was supposed to be my first time in India, and I'm sure there will be next. And actually, it's the first e-conference video conference I do. So I try to be yeah, as clear as possible. Although I understand it's a bit peculiar. But so thanks for inviting me. I'm very touched to be invited, and on the subjects, so which is economics implication of integral humanism. And as I can acknowledge, firstly, I'm absolute ignorant of India. I barely know a thing. I'm trying to learn a bit about your country and spiritualism, but it's still a starting journey. But still, as many French and European before me, I must say yeah, I know it's starting fascinating for your cultures, and I was indeed a bit struck to hear about the implication of Jacques Maritain's thinking on integral humanism. So to try to make it clearer and simpler, I would like first to do this speech on three times. The first idea and maybe context, I can give you some background, and having worked myself quite a lot on not specifically Maritain, but on the social doctrine of church, I can give you a bit of context of the relation between integral humanism, as Maritain explained it, and integral development, which is, as you may be aware, a very central notions concept in Maritain's thinking, and later on in the doctrine, what you call social doctrine of the church. In fact, you may maybe remember that Maritain published his book, I think in 1936, on Humanisme intégral, and he came up in a context in Europe, which is very, very specific, and which is a context of political turmoil, geopolitical turmoil as well, in the right before the Second World War, and in the meantime, himself, Maritain, well, as I'm sure you've mentioned earlier in the conference, I'm so sorry not to be able to attend, in what we call the neo-Thomist revival, and basically among other thinkers such as Gilson, Garrigou-Lagrange, yeah, it was one of the thinkers in the first part of the 20th century in France and in Europe that reinterpret the thinking of Saint Thomas d'Aquin. Thomas Aquinas himself was one of a great master who helped Christian spirituality to integrate the great Greeks, and specifically Aristotle. So it really he came up in the the lead figure of this new Thomist revival. And in the meantime, it also influenced, and that would be important for you to understand the introduction. I want to propose you to the concept in Europe of integral development, as up until today, great developments. He influenced greatly, and he took part in the context of the development of the doctrine sociale de l'Église, so social doctrine of the church, that technically started with the first encyclic from Leo XIII at the very end of the 19th century. So at the first point, maybe as an element of context, I will elaborate a bit on the notion of développement intégral, but it's important for you, and especially if you're not familiar with his background, to understand that he came at a very specific time in history of the thought in Europe, whereby both the new Thomist renewal, so the rediscovery of Thomas of Aquinas, and of developed in the very same time as the development of the social thinking of the church. So just as a quick reminder, and obviously as the Catholic intellectual, as an economist, Jacques Maritain did not write intensively about economics, but as an integral philosopher, as a philosopher of integrity, he cannot have missed. He has integrated in his thought, in his system, the notion of economy. So again, as a reminder, and I will probably propose you some quotes, and I'll obviously circulate my paper later on. And again, sorry, and I hope it's going to be clear enough. The social doctrine of the church represents the corpus of principles inspired by the majesty of the church. That is, to the quote, it's the way the Christian knows how to find the principle for reflection, criteria for judgment, and directives for action, which are the starting point of the promotion of integral and solidarity humanism. So the church social teaching, as I said, dates back really from 1981 with the first encyclic called Rerum Novarum, which literally in English say about new things. And from that date on, it was completed every 15, 20 years ago by different encyclicals on text. So I won't go into detail of all of them. But the very first time, actually, the social doctrines talk about integral development, integral humanism. It's in 1967 with a very important text called Populorum Progressio. And in this text specifically, it refers to Jacques Maritain's book of Human Integral. And it says, and it starts about the development on full humanism, quoting, the ultimate goal is a full-bodied humanism. So in French, we say développement intégral. And though it not mean the fulfillment of the whole man and every man, quote again, a narrow humanism closed on itself and not open to the value of the spirit and to God who is their source could achieve apparent success. For men can set about organizing terrestrial activities without God. But closed off from God, they would end up being directed against men. Quote again, a humanism closed off from other realities become inhuman. So in other words, again, to try to simplify through this video conference, Jacques Maritain had a very deep influence on the social doctrine of the church, and it was explicitly apparent in this first text that defines in a few words what is humanism integral, or full humanisme intégral, or as it's translated into English, full-bodied humanism. So that's clearly this reference to this text from Jacques Maritain. It's not from Humanisme intégral. It's quote referring explicitly to Les conditions spirituelles du progrès. It's one of this book he published in 1966. So that Maritain directly and explicitly influenced this crucial and first reference to integral or full-body humanism in this 1967 text called Populorum Progressio. 20 years later, again, I propose you a genealogy of the concept, and basically to give you an idea of how Maritain influenced the social thinking of the church, so the social doctrine of the church, Jean-Paul II, in another text called Solicitudo Rei Socialis, published in 1987, has very interesting development on what he called authentic human development. And pitting progress as a linear progress, inspired, as you say, by characteristic of Enlightenment philosophy. Jean-Paul II has very interesting quotes and try to define even deeper what's development intégral, so full-bodied development or integral development, if you say. And he says, addressing the different dimensions of development, he has said that, I quote, development which is not merely economic is measured and oriented according to this reality and vocation of man, considered in his entity, that is to say, according to an inner parameter which is proper to him. So that's, which refers to the divine vocation of the man. So in this text, so 20 years later after the first text, Jean-Paul II explained what he calls authentic development. And even 20 years later, in another very interesting text, that is key in understanding this notion of humanism and integral development. Pope Benedict XVI, in a text called Caritas in Veritate, developed even bigger the concept. He said that the truth of development lies in its entity. The truth of development lies in its entirety. Sorry, it's not for all men and all men development. It's not true development. In other words, development must be integral, otherwise it's partial and it's not true development. And then he echoes Pope VI, another Pope before him, and a very interesting idea in this text, and it's even more accurate today, and I will elaborate later on with this new text published in 2018. He says that basically country can have a very efficient economic development, but if they're doomed by what they call moral underdevelopment, then they fail their vocation. In other words, you have the development of economies, but if it goes with the underdevelopment of the soul, of the spirituality, then it's not proper development, it's anti-development, in other words. And the exclusive pursuit of wealth, which was early on introduced, can obstruct the growth of being and oppose true greatness. So it clearly, that's very interesting, oppose true development, greatness, self-fulfillment, and pure linear economic growth in itself. And I'm pretty sure that there may be a lot of echoes with what you're saying on what is exactly true development and what is false development. And in the false development, as this Pope said, there is moral underdevelopment. And in many ways, in the Western country today, you can question these ideas of we've achieved some great economic success, but it went with great moral underdevelopment. And so that's as an introduction to what the church and Maritain has influence on development. It goes, there's this text I suggested to read, and then up until today, it was quite structural in the social doctrine of the church. So up until the new documents, which is called Economica Pecuniaria Questiones for 2018, which is basically the last doctrinal text on integral development published in Europe as book, and it basically it was published under the authority of Pope Francis, and it elaborates even more on this notion of integral humanism and how and even finance. And in this specific text, again, I won't go into not much further details, but it was very interesting in the thinking of Pope Francis, and again, directly influenced by Maritain, is this criticism of technical paradigm. In other words, there's this idea that economy cannot be considered in finance as a matrix, as the key elements of the economic system, cannot be self-sufficient. In other words, you have always these temptations of what he says of pure technique carried away on its own paradigm and disconnect from other forms of knowledge. And that contributes to its failures. So here again, and this text in 2018 scanned in the context of after the great crisis of 2009, and there is this philosophical idea very central that economy and finance and financing tool in itself cannot, must prevent this what we call illusion of omnipotence. So, and true well-being, on the other hand, it must be an alliance between technical knowledge, and obviously finance is a tool to our greater development and what we call full-body development, so humanism integral if you want, and human wisdom. So there must be this alliance, as it says in this 2018 text, between technical knowledge and human wisdom, and it can respond to today's challenge. And contribute, as he says, to true integral developments. And finally, for this, when this text and the Pope Francis talk about true and integral well-being, it invites us in the very introduction of this very decisive text to question the central notion of well-being itself. Is well-being an addition, or is it quality or quantity, to oversimplify it? And the truthness of development lies not in the abundance, as you say, and it's very critical to people who think that, but to integral development, which opposes in many ways. So most of the time, well-being is understood as an emotional state, somehow, le bien-être in French, if you want. But instead, this text directly inspired here again by Jacques Maritain from what I've read, one aspect of modern technicist thought is verified in the tendency to consider problems and movement related to inner life only from a psychological point of view. In fact, the problem of development is also strictly linked to our conception of the human soul. So that's to conclude on that dimension of integrality. As you can see, and I hope I've been relatively clear in this context, as over the last 60 years through these very stepstones, went through today's European, the social doctrine of the Church, here again directly inspired in many ways by Jacques Maritain, up until today, with this very interesting text and notions of development, integral developments in the finance, where you can find a lot of I would say food for thought and crucial concept on what true well-being it must be understood, and how true economic development must be put into perspective. So sorry again, it's obviously far too short, and I'm not even sure I'm in the proper timing to introduce you to the economic implication of integral humanisms inspired by Jacques Maritain and the social doctrine of church. But I hope in a few words, or at least I hope give you some insight on this short genealogy of the terms, and what are the text that help you understand. And I'm sure from now on there's many ways we can dig this concept, and what's more important for me as a truly neophyte and foreigners to your country and your spirituality, to see how there could be interesting bridges, links between this concept and specifically in the political, economical and environment. So thanks again for listening. I can share with you my documents, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Rostand. He has been the managing director to Eiffel Investment Group. Mainly, he focused about the paradigm shift from loan culture to the saving culture. Otherwise, there was focus on consumerism. But now we have to care about the different phenomena, which is known as saving culture. A paradigm shift from Charvak philosophy to saving orientation. And that's why we are in the position to resolve the global financial crisis. Along with that, he also talked about ethical knowledge, character building. Thank you, Mr. Alex Rostand. I'm going to invite Professor Gopa Kumar, who has been the Vice-Chancellor at Kerala Central University. Before that, he has served as Professor, Head and Dean of Social Science Faculty at University of Kerala. He has written 12 books, numerous papers. I invite Professor Gopa Kumar for his presentation.
Thank Professor T.P. Singh for giving me this opportunity, and India Foundation. I must also address Sanjay Jha, Dr. Sanjay Jha, my co-panelist, and also address all the invited delegates, faculty members, and dear students. I'm trying to identify the specific aspects governing Deendayal Upadhyaya's concept of economic interpretations and implications for India. And finally, I will touch upon how it is going to be relevant in the current context. To begin with, I will identify a few points on his economic ideas, and then I will try to expand them. And finally, conclude by highlighting where we are and probably what are the relationships and the gaps between his ideas and the present pattern of India's political economy. As we know that Deendayal has an indigenous version of society and economy. Integral humanism is certainly built upon that. He was against conventional capitalism and socialism, and certainly against communism. But eventually, he adopted some aspects of capitalism, particularly individualism, and collectivism from socialism. So he did not completely deny the relevance, but was a critic of both capitalism and socialism. He was of the feeling that ordinarily democracy failed to reduce inequality and class conflict. And therefore, the true strength of democracy lies in building up nationalism, national values, and with discipline, the roots of democracy can be properly directed. His version of dharma and spirituality is actually more important in the current context because it affects economy as well. His notion of relegating the role of the state to the nation, because he considered that state can just play the role of an attorney of the nation, and the nation can even withdraw the attorney status of the state. So this is contrary to our conventional theories about the state and the nation. And Deendayalji was of the strong opinion that the concept of cultural nationalism preceded the Westphalian notion of nation states and sovereignty. Unlike the social contractualists, he believed that individual, family, community, and nation are so important, and it is not a product of conventional agreement between the people or between the king and the people as we find in social contract theories. Institutions that are built upon Chithi and Virat will certainly have implications for societal upbringing through harmony. He was also a strong supporter of Swaraj, Swadeshi, and decentralization. He supported financial decentralization and devolution of powers. But we can find a contradiction at this level when he strongly opposed federalism and advocated a unitary state, because he found that the provinces or the states of India should be limbs of the mother India, but at the same time he was advocating substantial financial decentralization and devolution of powers. He was a strong advocate of sustainable development. Unlike today, where we have work from home, grinding work schedules, and overproduction, he suggested that whatever is needed for a country can be produced, but not overproduction. Capital and labor are certainly important, and for which Bharatiya technology can be a great source for augmenting capital and labor that are required for the nation. With these points, I will try to explain what he meant actually in the form of his economic ideas. Dharma is certainly basic to economy and polity, because dharma regulates the conduct of economic affairs, justice, and governance. And therefore, undue accumulation of wealth is contrary to dharma. So he was opposed to economic monopolies, because economic monopolies would imply corruption, and dharma on the other side will regulate artha, karma, and moksha. So dharma is actually superior to religion, and what we require is a dharma rajya based on knowledge of history and tradition. So this should be the basis of adjudicating dharma, and therefore he did not advocate parliamentary majorities, but on the other side he said that even if there is only one person on one side with truth and 499,999 on the other, definitely this one person who holds the truth is the actual representative of dharma. Production should be on the basis of actual necessities of the people, because otherwise there will be greed, competition for profit, and naturally destroys the environment. And therefore, supply and demand has to be natural for reasonable living. So he opposed materialism of the present consumer society. And I quote, "Really speaking, our slogan should be that one who earns will feed, and every person will have enough to eat." Perhaps this is just opposite of the Marxian ideology. He who has not work shall not eat. So this is exactly his notion that, really speaking, our slogan should be that one who earns will feed, and every person will have the right to eat. So it is a welfare of the state in conformity with dharma, dignity, and justice. Full employment is certainly required, but at the same time, it should not lead to a larger scale production. Machines are important, but machines shall not come in the way of the labor and ignore the specific needs of the society. He objected even the import of foreign machines to India and unrestricted capital goods and imports. In other words, he was advocating not only Bharatiya technology, but also advocating for ensuring different forms of energy for production. This is something we can find now. We are concentrating on solar energy and renewable energy and affordable energy. This is an area where we can work upon based upon the kind of ideas given by him. he found that there is no integral man either in capitalism and socialism. And therefore, what is required is an atmosphere for minimum standard of living while being prepared for the defense of the nation. We should help for the progress of the world also, while avoiding extravaganza, waste. Full employment has to be achieved. So we have to protect the ownership of industries on a pragmatic basis, on a Swadeshi basis, and this is actually missing in capitalism and socialism. So Western society ignored family and the bonds of the family, and therefore it led to environmental degradation. His focus was on human being at the core of economic and social and political model. This was not Western individualism, and Dharmarajya is the answer for a stateless society advocated by Deendayal Upadhyay. He was also advocating Sarvodaya, which has been highlighted here, and more importance to cultural and national values. While in the West there is so much of compartmentalization of individualism, Deendayalji was influenced by Bal Gangadhar Tilak and advocated that society must work harmoniously to strengthen the institutions, and that should lead for a selfless deeds for all-round growth. We are happy to see that the government has implemented Gramin Kausalya Yojana for skill development for rural youth in the name of Deendayal Upadhyay. So larger levels of peace and sustainable growth are required, for which indigenous model is more preferable than a Western model. So this idea of unity in diversity, where he highlighted Dharma becomes the law, and the diversity also helps for unity on the other side. The state requires stability, and for which we have to concentrate upon the growth of the ordinary person. I quote, "Those who have lost everything will become ruthless." So, who he is under starvation will not fear to commit any sin, according to Deendayal Upadhyay. He was a strong critic of consumerism, which is a character of the present day life today, and advocated for education and character. So, importance for spirituality and harmony for the development of national identity. Even he was supporting internationalism, because internationalism should be a level of growth of enlightened nationalism. And socio-cultural conditions for peace and development are actually required here. So state should be a facilitator and not a authority over the nation. It should be vice versa. And because nation is the organic entity. And coming to the federal idea, that is where he was strongly advocating for a strong center, strong nation, but at the same time, he advocated that the provinces or the states shall be given maximum financial autonomy, and also advocated Swaraj and decentralization. It is on this point you will find something different, because under conventional unitary state, the units are agents of the center. But in our situation, he himself advocated that state should be the limbs of the mother India, but at the same time, there must be more scope for decentralization and devolution of powers, so that at the local level, there will be more opportunity for regional development. If you look at the ideology of BJP over the years and also Jan Sangh through the states, we can see that there has been so much of support for states development, regional development. And states, if you look at the election manifesto, it is very clear, the growth of states become very important in a federal setup. This has been the position and policy of the BJP, but it was certainly advocating for a strong nation as well. But here you will find a slight difference between the conventional notion of federalism and what Deendayal Upadhyay held, on the other. Before I conclude, I must also say that the 19th century, 20th century, 21st century, 22nd century, 23rd century, 24th century, 25th century, 26th century, 27th century, 28th century, 29th century, 30th century, 31st century, 32nd century, 33rd century, 34th century, 35th century, 36th century, 37th century, 38th century, 39th century, 40th century, 41st century, 42nd century, 43rd century, 44th century, 45th century, 46th century, 47th century, 48th century, 49th century, 50th century, 51st century, 52nd century, 53rd century, 54th century, 55th century, 56th century, 57th century, 58th century, 59th century, 60th century, 61st century, 62nd century, 63rd century, 64th century, 65th century, 66th century, 67th century, 68th century, 69th century, 70th century, 71st century, 72nd century, 73rd century, 74th century, 75th century, 76th century, 77th century, 78th century, there are many virtues which the government of India has started implementing from the ideology of Deendayal ji, and that is where you find micro level industries catching up, startups, and also provision for welfare. So welfare is something progressive according to Dharmarajya concept. So the welfare notion is catching up, as we know very well. The support given to the poorest in terms of water, drinking water, houses, ration, food security, toilets. So these things also helps for the growth of the state and empowering the poorest of the poor. But on the other side, there has also been provision for developing skill centers, not only attached to universities, but even there is a National Skill Development Corporation and National Skill Development Institutes in different parts of the country. And attempt is given for training the youth through more than 540 skill centers across the country, providing opportunities for the youth to get attracted for self-employment. But on the other side, let me also argue or highlight that the style of present-day corporatism, the manner in which globalization is going ahead, I'm sure if Deendayal ji was here, he would have strongly opposed. The corporate India was not Deendayal ji's concept. But the one major side of India's position is corporatism. And corporatism has provided room for multinational corporations in a huge manner and also attracting huge investment from abroad. Now, this may be imperative because of providing employment to the ordinary people. But ultimately, a lot of capitalist and international, multinational capital interests come in the way. This is exactly opposite to Deendayal ji's concept. So economically, on the side, while Deendayal's ideas are implemented at some level, but particularly at the welfare plank, and then at the level of small-scale industries and skilling the rural youth and startups, the march of corporate India, the rise of industrial development, particularly internationalization of global economy, for which India is a strong contender, I think goes against the conventional ideas developed by Deendayal ji. So these differences may also be taken into account while considering the economic implications. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Normally, post-lunch sessions are slightly monotonous, but due to his lively presentation, it was very interesting. Although his original branch is political science, but he was talking like a student of economics. Therefore, we praise him a lot. He talked about poorest of the poor growth, spirituality, concept of cultural nationalism, Swaraj, Swadeshi, decentralization, sustainable growth, anti-corporatism, knowledge, tradition, welfare of state, full employment. By and large, he touched all the economic views of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay ji. I am going to invite Sanjay Kumar Jha. Sanjay Kumar Jha is the professor and dean at Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. He has been the finance officer as well as registrar to that university. He joined the Central University of Gujarat in the year 2012 and served as chairperson, Center for Security Studies, Dean School of International Studies, Dean of Student Welfare, and so on. Professor Sanjay Kumar Jha.
थैंक यू सर। आप सबों को मेरा नमस्कार। At the outset, let me thank the India Foundation, Dr. Sri Ram Madhav ji, Professor T.P. Singh ji, for this invitation and very warm hospitality that I received. So I am thankful. I am also aware about being the last speaker of last session. just before valedictory session. So I will try to keep that discipline. I am also a student of international politics and security studies. And often we discuss that the economy is key to any conflict at both at domestic level and international level. The way you organize your economic system, the way you come up with economic ideas, the way you ensure that resources are managed, distributed, better utilized, and the way you ensure better optimum utilization of resources will hold key to many conflict management initiatives. In contemporary world, two major drivers of conflicts are economy and identity. And even identity-based conflicts, be it international terrorism, radicalization, economic dimension is often a very major dimension. And in that context, Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay's economic thought may give us some ideas on how to deal with these issues. Before discussing key aspects of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay's ideas, let me briefly explain the context in which we are discussing his ideas. I will highlight 3 points. We are witnessing at global level significant change. Global system is in a flux. We are moving from unipolar world to multipolar world and possible bipolar world in near future. And this alignment, realignment of power has given apprehension to many, particularly the way China has been rising, the way the rise of China has been interpreted in India and elsewhere in West also. It gives us apprehension about the way the trajectory of this international system will take, and economy is one important factor there also. At the same time, we are living in a highly interdependent world where money, technology, ideas, they transfer, they are exchanged at frequent level. While these things, they have helped us grow as a better human being, better society, these things have also given rise to multiple conflicts. So globalization has also taken us to a new era of conflict. So that is two major things, globalization, both opportunity and challenge. India, how we look at it. At global level, India's profile has been rising, and we are recognized, largely acknowledged as a very responsible power, largest democracy with robust economic growth, with a capacity to play a very important role in global affairs. How India will behave and how India will look at things in future will have implication for global order. We in India also, we have set a goal. The government of India has articulated its vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. And we also aspire to play a very important role in global affairs. But what role will that be? We have never been an expansionist imperialist power. Our role will be based on our cultural ethos. I will just take that phrase from our G20 slogan, one earth, one family, one future. So our vision, our contribution to global order will be on those lines. Sarve bhavantu sukhina vasudhaiva kutumbakam. But the irony is that do we have sufficient tools, conceptual models, vocabularies to understand these changes? Or are we still relying on the dominant global narratives, conceptual parameters developed in the West? In India, the good thing that a debate has at least started. We are now acknowledging it to have our own vocabulary, our own perspective, Bharatiya perspective to look at things. And the process has intensified in last 1 decade. I call it sort of re-awakening, realization in our own capacity to do that, our own capacity to understand that. Resurgence to in our quest to our understand our problem from our own lens. And integral humanism is one such concept, one such approach that help us understand many of the things, dilemmas that we are facing at national level, at international level, but also it can guide international community. Integral humanism, as all of us are aware that it was documented, it was in 1965 lectures of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay, and it was adopted as one of the core philosophy of Bharatiya Jan Sangh. Bharatiya Janata Party has also stated that integral humanism is party's basic philosophy. And Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji also on number of occasions he has articulated that Deendayal Upadhyay ji's views are as relevant as they were during his days. And a number of policy initiatives of this government also points out that the government is at least trying to implement, I will not say in toto, but part of that. And it's a project in progress. We cannot assess. Because political systems, they have their own imperatives, they have their own compulsions. So you cannot, success and failure of any idea cannot be measured in tangible way. So we are discussing in a world where the dominant narrative is that the trajectory of economic development and growth, they are irreversible process. Globalization, capitalist system, welfare state, they are irreversible, they cannot be changed. We are living in a global system where you have to take ideas from others, we cannot remain isolated, and whatever we do, whatever tools we use to understand the problem, it has to be in the global context. And here, coming to Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay's economic philosophy, briefly I will touch upon 2-3 points. First is the role of a state. A state has become very powerful, not in coercive sense in India at least, but its capacity to influence people, capacity to manage even societal affairs. That was not the case when Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay is writing. He articulates that according to Bharatiya tradition, nation is an organic entity, organic living entity, and it has come into existence on its own. It is not part of, it is not a result of some social contract. And nation has a soul, chitti. It forms the core philosophy of integral humanism. If there is any standard for determining merits and demerits of a particular action, it is chitti. And a state is one of the institutions. So any economic activity, economic organization, they have to be judged on the basis of soul. A state is one of the many institutions to give concrete shape to this inner fundamental nature of the state. It is not supreme. There are other societal institutions who played very important role. They are organized both on vertical and horizontal level. Panchayats, Janpads, Sabhas, Sreni, etc., etc. In medieval times, in ancient times, a state and interaction between a state and these institutions' role were very important. And states never, very seldom interfere in inner functioning of society. Society was autonomous entity and society. And that was one of the reasons that the nation, they retained its chitti. Chitti is not lost. We have to realize it. And that is the therefore. So therefore, we have to devise an economic system that creates infrastructure and frame regulation in which this inherent chitti is to be realized. So that is one point. And the second is alternative to capitalism and socialism. Eminent speakers in previous sessions, they talked about how Nehruvian model did not serve the economic purpose of this country, how it was imposed, both capitalism and socialism. They are antithesis to integral humanism. In capitalism, individual is a commodity, and it can be replaced by machine. In socialism, a state, individual surrenders before a state becomes sole arbiter of things. So he gave third option, that is alternative to capitalism and socialism, and that is Bharatiya model of economic development. This Bharatiya model of economic development, apart from 4 seminal lectures, you can find it is 2 publications I could lay hand on, 2 plans, promises, performances, prospects, and Bharatiya Arthaniti Vikas Ki Ek Disha. And he was critical of the planning process, centralized economy, heavy industry, and its impact on that. Objective of economic system, according to Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay, they were 6-fold. And assurance of minimum standard of living to every individual and preparedness for defense of the nation. Second, further increase above this minimum standard of living, whereby individual and the nation acquire the means to contribute to world progress on the basis of its own chitti. Third, to provide meaningful employment to every able-bodied citizen, by which the above 2 objectives can be realized, and to avoid waste and extravagance in utilizing natural resources. Fourth, to develop machines suited for Bharatiya condition. This he called Bharatiya technology. Technology to assist human being. Technology not to replace human being. So human being remains supreme. Technology simply assisting in the production process. To develop machine suited to Bharatiya condition, taking note of availability of nature and various factors of production. In that, the core competence of that society is important factor. Every society, they have their own expertise, and their production should be based on those expertise. The system must help, not disregard human being and individual. It must protect cultural and other values of life. This is a requirement which cannot be violated except at the risk of its own peril. The ownership, state or private or any form of various industries must be decided on a pragmatic and practical basis. He is not against private ownership, he was not against industrialization, but decentralized economy. And most important point is said that we have to discard a status quo mentality. And that is very important in contemporary context also, because institutions, they have been designed to work on a status quo method. We inherited most of the institutions from British rulers. Their nature, their thirst, their ideas, it takes time to change. There is huge resistance. If you analyze progress of economic policies, progress of planning, progress of any new initiative unleashed by the government, you will find most of the problem comes from internal resistance from the institution itself. The institution is the first thing, bottleneck, that you have to clear if you want any visionary step to be implemented. So that status quo. Institutions, if they are outdated, they have to be neglected. He was not saying that you discard all old institution, you create. सबको तोड़ना की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन जिसकी जरूरत नहीं है उसको आप डिस्कार्ड कीजिए, जिसको नए की जरूरत है उसको लेके आइए या उसको मॉडिफाई कीजिए. अब आपको you took almost 100 years to even review Indian Penal Code or Indian Police Act. So that lethargy should not be there. If that is the case, then he talks about 7M, taking from Dr. Visvesvarayya's, that is key to economic. Man, material, money, management, motive, market, motive, power, market, and machine. And there has to be a combination. They are not competitor of each others. And two areas where he emphasized, one was Swadeshi and second was decentralization. His understanding of Swadeshi was slightly different from Gandhian understanding of Swadeshi. He was not against machinery per se, but he was saying that production should be on the basis of the requirement of society, expertise of society, and the nature of individual as integrated human being, not as a commodity, not as human being as. He was against demand-driven, consumption-driven economy. So today, our economy is demand-driven. The focus is to create demand to boost production. And this cycle has given rise to consumerism, mad race, and lot of people, a large section of society, they remain marginalized. There is concentration of wealth in fewer hands. So requirement-driven economy and demand-driven. Votaries of free market economy will say that is the only way available. We are living in a world where you have, if you have to develop, you have to invite foreign capital, you have to boost demand, we have to create demand, and by hook or by crook, and that is the debate. So these two things are debated in government also, Swadeshi and decentralization. And government has taken a very pragmatic view, but there are differences. For example, the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, their stand on many issues are different from what government is saying, citing various compulsions, imperatives of globalization, etc. And decentralization also. The government of India has taken that very seriously, and various schemes, Skill India Development, a startup movement, then even Make in India, where you invite foreign capital to invest in India, they are with an objective to do that. So government is saying, government's argument is that anything that creates employment, anything that helps augmentation of wealth will ultimately lead to benefit of common people. And government will be in a better position to give benefit, targeted benefit to people, and government is doing a number of that. So another debate is that, due to paucity of time, I'm not going into detail that the targeted benefit and capacity building, these two things, to what extent targeted benefit, that direct benefit transfer, direct food subsidy, etc., be given, or to what extent that how those resources should be spent in creating capacity and skill at the grassroots level that can. There are no easy answer to these questions. Theoretical level you can argue, but at practical level there are several imperatives and compulsions that the government has to take into account. So Atmanirbhar Bharat is one area where government is trying to do that. This is very challenging, but a good beginning has been made, and it would be premature at this juncture to assess full impact of this policy. But it looks promising, and if it takes off, it will have a positive impact on this decentralization of your economic structure and this there. So with these words, do I have time? Can I take 2 more minutes? Just time. So this targeted benefit or this, the balance is being struck. The Antyodaya scheme by government, where it has integrated the livelihood mission program. For example, Deendayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Mission or Urban Livelihood Mission. These things are being created. But we are discussing this at this juncture where the full impact is not visible because of the long period that it took to understand these dynamics and lot of institutional inertia and that view. So key to economic philosophy, if today's context we want that, we need to look at our society's own resilience, strength, and devise economic policies accordingly, depending on the skill set that you have in society. Yes, we have to interact with globe, we have to take technology, but we should not give importance to such technology that undermines human labor at India. We are debating, I'm also teaching cyber security at the university, and one more major debate that we are having that artificial intelligence, IoT, and its impact on society, in its impact on human labor, and will it replace or displace human being? So these things we have to be very cautious. We cannot avoid it, but we cannot imitate. And we should stop imitating blindly. Anything that model that West has given is good, modernization, anything. And we should start realizing our own strength, drawing on our wisdom, historical wisdom, cultural understanding, and the way we organized our lives. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Professor Jha. By and large, all the economic principles of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay ji were touched by Professor Jha. He mainly talked about Atmanirbhar Bharat. In 2020, 2 specific measures of Government of India are very relevant. One is ANBA, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, and another is NEP, National Education Policy. Both are complementary and supplementary. One is self-reliant India on the industrial front. Another is self-reliant India on the educational front. Although 2020 was very bad, COVID started in the same year. It was just like Third World War. But whatsoever loss was due to this COVID, we are expecting these 2 measures, ANBA and NEP, will compensate all that. And that will become the main vehicle for converting our country from developing to developed. He also talked about from crisis economy to surplus economy. Whenever there is crisis economy, there is need of production orientation. And that's why in our country we started various revolutions, like Green Revolution, Yellow Revolution, White, because there was production crisis. But now we have shifted from crisis economy to the surplus economy. In surplus economy, we have to bother about the marketing dimensions. He also talked about 7 M's. Sir, in those M, most important is men and management, people's management, HRM. He also talked about SWOT, converting the challenge into opportunity. In our discipline, we are saying it SWOT, S-W-O-T. Strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. But learn to convert the SWOT into TOWs. Just reversing it. Metro company produced the fan. There was problem of branding. Metro was converted into ARTM. Just Metro reverse is ARTM. METROORTEM. Therefore, I am suggesting converting the SWOT into TOWs. Convert the threats into opportunity and weakness into strength. He also talked about Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam and so many things. Thanks a lot to you, sir. Now for the valedictory function, all the dignitaries like Professor Brinda Pranjape, Professor S.N. Sankhwar, Professor S.P. Singh Sahab have come. This is a signal that we have to conclude the session. Professor T.P. Singh Sahab, we have taken less than 90 minutes time, which was allotted to us, and therefore by his hint, I am ignoring the part of interaction. I'm not permitting the students or learned participants for asking the question because we are already delayed by around 1 hour. Now the session is over, and now I'm requesting organizers for completing it.
Thank you, sir. I request the chair for the session, Professor H.K. Singh, sir, to present souvenirs on behalf of India Foundation to the esteemed speakers. I request Professor S.B. Singh, sir, to present souvenir to the chair. Professor H.K. Singh, sir. I thank the chair for the smooth conduction of this scholarly session, and I also thank the esteemed speakers for their valuable insights for the benefit of young scholars.